Sir from 17 once again. This is my Metal Gear Rising Revengeance Difficulty video walkthrough. This is File 1, Coup d'etat, as I like to say, just like Tres Cushionada used to. And this is the demo mission from this game, and it's a little bit different, and that fight that I talked over just then is significantly harder than it just looked. The three soldiers are accompanied by something called a mastiff, and he will pretty much one-shot you with everything he does. He is an asshole, and if you can get the parry, you can kill him very quickly, but doing so is much easier to say than it is to do it. So I didn't even have a chance to talk about that section because it went so fast, and that's what this game is like. But when I was first playing this game on a new game, on Revengeance mode, I had no upgrades, I had nothing. That fight there, I must have died maybe 30 times, and it was insane. And it is insane, and it's going to be probably the first test of your ability to cope with soldiers attacking you and these bigger creatures attacking you. And a lot of this game is throwing awkward groups of enemies at you. The bigger they are, the more nuisance they seem to be. And later on it does get really challenging in aspects, and Platinum get difficulty really well in games, but there are moments on this game where I definitely think some of the enemy placement is intentionally dickish. For instance, there's the sequences where you take on multiple Fenrirs, or Fenrirs, which are the boss of this level, and the wolf that you recruit. And when you're taking on 3 of those at the same time, when they can potentially one-shot you, and they're all dashing around, it gets a little bit ridiculous. But these first few sections here, you've seen me do this before if you watch my demo playthrough. It's the same logic on this difficulty. This guy over here used to give you 5,000 battle points for doing that successfully because it was a mission, but for some reason it doesn't seem to pop up on the full game, so I don't know if they balanced that or they changed that, but I got like 26 pence, which I'm not happy about. This fight here, when I first got here on Revengeance mode on new game, this took me about an hour and a half to do, something like that. I must have died easily 60-70 times, because after you fight these guys, which aren't too bad, you're going to take on 2 armoured guys with swords that one-shot you. And if they kill you, which they will, if you're unused to fighting them, you have to fight these guys again. And the strategy I use against these is simple. I run away, I get separation between me and the gecko so that he does the little kick the ground and then run at you. All you have to do is block it, you don't have to parry it. Then it will set you up if you have full blade meter to do that crazy Zandatsu technique. And then all you need to do is dispatch these guys as quick as possible. A really good technique on this game is the sliding. Just run with the ninja run and press Y. What that will do is it will sweep the legs and it will allow you to do the blade mode to chop them in half and just deal with them. But here they are. These guys here are one of the worst enemies on the game. I absolutely hate them because they counter your counters. Sometimes you can land the parry on them, other times it just will not work. They're extremely difficult to stun, but that's where these secondary weapons come in. The pincer, or the bloodlust as I call it, is a fantastic weapon for this. If you notice, jumping in the air and pressing Y will knock them on their ass, and all you want to do against this kind of enemy is spam the jump technique, or any technique that stuns people. You can do this with your standard sword, but the problem is you have to do the 2-hit combo before Raiden comes down with the proper slam. But the bloodlust that I'm using right now, it's powerful enough to just juggle these guys if I do the standard attack. The only drawbacks to it is it has a lot of recovery frames and it's very slow. A couple of them can be cancelled by normal slashes, but for the most, it can be a bit of a pain in the ass to use unless you know the timing of it. Something that's really useful that I've most recently found out is you can charge the blade, and I never thought to do it, and you can actually do 3 different charges depending on what swing of the combo you're on. And the 3rd swing, after you do 2 normal taps and then hold it, you will do a devastating bloodlust combination, and that weapon does some serious power, guys. Even on this difficulty, it destroys things, it destroys bosses. The only drawback is how long it takes to do. But this sequence here, once again from the demo, is a stealth area. You can go balls to the walls combat, but you'll notice The soldiers that were here on normal have now been, you know, changed to those stupid armor guys who I really don't like. So I'm going to try and stealth them as best I can. But the armoured cyborgs, heavy attacks do make them flinch, and you can juggle them, and when they're on their own they're not too much of a problem, but together with anything else they can really be difficult, and they're difficult for a couple of reasons. The first one is there is no dedicated dodge button on this game, and it really frustrates me, and it frustrates me because you get left in a situation where you know you have to avoid an attack, you're not too sure if you can parry it, and if you had an evade it would just make you feel so much safer. And the game gives you this kind of evasive slash technique, which, don't get me wrong, it's a good move and it can be useful, but it's the exact same kind of input to do that move as it is to parry. So why would you ever do the evade when you could just parry it? That's one of the things I don't really get with it. Because my main gripe with this game, and before I mention the things that I criticise, I love this game, guys. I can't even express how much I think this game is amazing. It is also amazingly short, so unless you're like me and you can replay the tits off this type of title, it's going to be an interesting value proposition for you. But for me, I'm going to probably be playing this for the rest of the year because there's just something about it that I absolutely adore. But it does have things that bug me, because all games do, and I do like to try and highlight the problems with the title instead of just blatantly sucking it off, because there's no need. Anybody who has eyes and who appreciates, you know, a good feeling game will know that this is a fantastic title when it comes to the character driven action games. But the parry in it, I really don't like how they've mapped the parry. Don't get me wrong, it takes a lot of skill, it can be very precise, and it is more than functional. It is more functional than some games I've played, but it's kind of awkward for the sake of being awkward. It makes you commit to a certain way of pressing the buttons that is skillful, but at the same time is kind of awkward, and I don't really like that at all. And if you played Bayonetta and you used the Moon of Malachi or Malachar or whatever it's called, it was the same with that. I wish it was one button. I really do, because it kind of trips you up. The time it takes your brain to acknowledge you've got to parry, the time it takes your hands to knock the analog and the attack button at the same time so that you do the parry, you can be hit. And if it was a single input, all of that problem would be eradicated, because it would be similar to the witch mode flip in Bayonetta, where you press one of the triggers and it was an evade. And it would be just so much more comfortable, because there's something about, you know, aside from damaging your pad, which is no doubt going to do because this game is very intensive, there's a delay to it, and that delay gets me hit a lot. And there's also input fails, because these analogs we're using, they have a varying degree of, you know, dead zones on them and other things like that. So when you're pushing it, sometimes it doesn't register and you end up getting hit. There's this whole... It's not the game's fault, because the game is about as responsive and as precise as a game can be. You know, Platinum do not fuck about. These games are so finely tuned, they're amazing. But the choice of input is unnecessarily more awkward and difficult than it needs to be. All because of the use of the analog. If there was a dedicated button for it, perhaps B, because you don't use B for anything, then I would have no issue at all. Like, if you had to flick the right analog in the direction, I'd have no problem with that. Even if it was just the analog and not X, I wouldn't really mind that. It's the combination of the two. I don't like it. And that's just me. It's not a problem with the game, that's just a preference of mine. I don't like it. I just don't. But that right there is the boss of the demo, who I've just dispatched, and I don't know if you spot that, but I landed a parry on him with the Murasama, I think it's called. And it's the most powerful katana on the game. It's fully upgraded. You want to fully upgrade everything for this game, for this difficulty especially. And it nearly took, what was that, two-thirds of his life. It did a massive amount of damage. So the timings of the parries are really important, especially on the bosses. The biggest problem though is the timing is very tight on some attacks, and some bosses are almost impossible to parry unless your timing is amazing. And I don't quite have my timings yet, guys, yet, but I will in future when I hopefully make S rank runs. But that is the beginning, essentially, of the game. I hope you enjoyed the first part, and you take care now.